So I thank you for being here this morning. We are courageous. Very courageous. You have two places.
Oh, Froggy! You made it.
The last but not the least. Thank you for your presence. Thank you. Okay, let us pray in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Let us thank God for all the graces we receive in this feast of the presentation of Jesus in the temple. Let us pray for all children around the world who are in difficult situation, especially those who are in state of war because they are menaced continually by bombs and by insecurity. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and the hour of our death. Amen. Mary, seat of wisdom, pray for us. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. So I hope you follow the class, you watch the class on the internet. So the first part of the chapter was to prove the existence of God from motion and from contingency. I will make a short summary of that. The proof of motion, it is essentially that things who are changing are made with potency and act. You know, the act is the perfection, and potency, it is an absence of perfection. For example, so those who will become priests among you, they are in potency. It is an absence of an imperfection in regard to be a priest. You know, if they were in act of being a priest, he will not become. So the change implies potential. So if things exist as changing, they must have a reason for their change. So there must be a mover, a cause that make me pass from potency to act. But finally, we cannot go to the infinite. We must arrive to a first mover, and that first mover must not be moved. He must be unmoved. That means he must be pure act. It must be pure act. So that means he cannot change. Because if he changes, he has to be explained by another. So that is the first proof, the first proof of the existence of God. We arrive to a first mover, a pure act. And that is the first act of everything to exist. So God is pure existence. He being pure existence, pure act, he can actualize everything. But he is pure. He has no mixture of potency. That is the first. And from that first proof, you know what I suggest you? To have a sheet of paper, and when you study, you write immediately all the attributes of God we can find. Because the attributes of God we will study after the proof are taken from here, from the proof. For example, God is pure act. And from that we can conclude that God is pure perfection. That being must be pure perfection. And if he is pure perfection, he is complete. He is integral, he is whole. And all is holy. He is complete, he is holy, he is complete. Okay? And also is the most important kind of act is life. So he is also source of life. He is pure life, and he can communicate life to be. Yes, brother.
In the video, you said, what's the Latin word for self-existing? The
A-C-E-T. I will come on that. Okay. because it is especially in the here we find that here. Okay, so it is the pure arc is all is integral, and because it gives motion to everything, is out of motion. It can give motion to everything. Is out of motion, therefore is transcendent. Is above any motion. So we have here some attribute of God, pure act, pure existence, pure perfection, complete, transcendent. The second proof was taken from contingency. For contingency, it is the fact that things are not necessary. Things that happens to be are not necessary. So, and things that are changing, they are not necessary. Because if there is change, I am not totally what I have to do. I must be. Therefore, the fact of change is reconciled with the fact with contingency. We are not totally what we are. Therefore, we are not necessary. Because if I was necessary, I will be totally what I am. The only God is totally necessary. And we arrive to exist. We become to exist. We arrive, we become to exist. So we are not necessary. If we are not necessary, we don't have our reason of existence in ourselves. So we must have our reason of existence in another. For example, I have my reason of existence in my father and my mother. But my father and my mother depend on my grandmother, grandfather, you know, etc. Finally, we arrive to a first. But the first in the series, is a part of the series. And the cause, which is necessary, must be outside of the series. For example, you play dominoes. So if there is not a flick at the beginning, push the first domino, the other will not fall. They are received. So we need a first being. A first being, and that first being must not be depend on another. Because if the first being depend on another, the first ear depend on another. That is the first in the series, the first man, the second man, etc. They depend on one ear, but that being here that is producing all the series must be outside of the series. He must be apart. And he must be necessary. Because if he is not necessary, he will depend on another, you know. So we are obliged to arrive to a first being, which is necessary. That means exist as by himself, or by itself. So because the creation, everything changing, exists ab alio, by another, by another. So that is the characteristic of finite being, of changing being, of being that happen to exist. In fact, existence is not necessary to my essence. That means my existence is not included in my definition. What is a man? It is a rational animal, period. He can exist, but he does not necessarily exist. Otherwise, man will exist for all eternity. We say, even scientifically, that man began to exist about 3 million years. Okay? So man exists only a few seconds in the history of the universe. Only a few seconds. We are very recent existing as man. So that means we are not necessary. We depend on one that is necessary existing. In that characteristic, we call that ACE. That is very, very, very important. For me, it is the most important proof. It is contingency. For me. Maybe for you others. Why? Because, you know, it is the only attribute that God cannot share. God shares all those, all this virtue, all this power. He shares everything except one. They exist by himself. So can God create another God?
No.
No, because the other God will depend on the first one. So there is only, so for me it's the strongest proof, metaphysically speaking, for me is l'aseity. God exists by himself. He shares with us his being, his existence, his intelligence, his love, his mercy, his power. It cannot share his aseity. So that is exclusive to God. Okay? And finally, we arrive to the third proof we studied this morning here. And that proof is from an order of subordinated and dependent causality. So it is here we study on page 7, on the text you have here. Okay? So, what is the source of the argument? The cosmological argument. Cosmos, why we say cosmos? Interesting. Cosmos,
Universe.
in Greek means the universe. The universe. But what kind of universe? Organized universe, ordered universe. Because the universe without order is called chaos. Chaos is the universe without order. In the Bible, we say tohu bohu. Tohu bohu. Chaos. And now the word is order. We have the order of season. We have the order, and science study order. In fact, what is the object of science? It is study how nature functions. Plants, animals, the body, etc. So cosmos. You understand why we call that a proof cosmological? Because it is the proof from the fact that the cosmos is order, that the universe is order. In the word cosmos, we have the idea of order. If there is order, there must be a principle of order. When there is order, there is an intelligent being. Okay? And it is at the same time to order, but also dependent. That order, the word is the universe is not only order, but it is dependent. Okay, we study that now in detail. Here we speak about Cardinal Mercier. Cardinal Mercier was a Belgian, from Belgium, and he was a teacher of philosophy. He became a cardinal. They are not numerous. John Paul II was a teacher of philosophy. He became a pope. I am a teacher of philosophy. I continue to be a humble holy apostle. That is interesting to see, that, yes, Jean Paul II was a philosophy, taught philosophy. So, he said, the metaphysical reality which form the basis of the proof of cosmological argument is the subordinated causality we can observe in the things that surround us. We see beings acting. They depend essentially on others for two things: for their activity and for their existence. Well, I will explain that briefly after we come to the text. For example, when a sculptor works on the statue, transform the marble into, for example, Moses. Okay. Or David, or beautiful Virgin Mary, etc. Is the one who made the statue to become. The marble is transformed into a statue. So he is the cause of the becoming of the. He is the one who is active, transforming marble into statue. But he dies, and 400 years after, the statue is there. So the statue continues to exist independently of the activity of the sculptor. Therefore, if the statue exists, there must be a reason for its continuous existence. No? So it will make the difference between dependence in activity or in becoming and dependence in existence. Another example. I depend. Each of us, we depend on our father and our mother to exist, to become a human being. My father is dead for 25 years, my mother 20 years. I continue to exist. Are they the cause of my existence? No. They are the cause of my becoming. They share in the activity of my becoming, but they're not the cause of my existence. So we have to think about that. So if we can find, if there is a cause of transformation of thing, the transformation, the existence of the thing, it does not depend on the artist or on the sculptor or on the carpenter. Okay? So I come back to the text now. Summary. So, changing being. What is a changing being? We saw that just before. It is passage from potency to act. Huh? That is changing. In changing here, it is the most universal meaning. Huh? Any kind of change. Huh? Okay? So, changing being, while acting, depend essentially on others' agent, both for its activity. For example, I depend, when I am here, I am in activity, I am teaching. I depend on many things. I depend on the air, I depend on the food, I depend on also, for my activity, I cannot teach if there is no light. If I have no voice, no air. I depend on many things. But do I am the author of my existence? No. So we have to distinguish all the time activity and being. Being, don't forget, being equals existence. Okay? When we say being, thing, existence. So, therefore, we look for three things. First, for a beginning of the activity, for example. A beginning. And that beginning must be provoked by a cause. So we are searching for a cause. And that cause, finally, if it is able to give some activity, some existence, must not receive. Because if the cause receives from another, we postpone the problem. So we are always obliged to arrive to a first cause. Okay? A third, that is the first cause. Okay? So a word about the principle of causality, because the foundation of that is principle of causality. Is the general principle at the foundation of the process of the existence of God. In every proof, in fact, we use the principle of a causality. We can understand that the negation of this principle leads necessarily to the negation of the capacity of proving the existence of God. And that leads people to agnosticism. And we have two philosophers here, totally opposed, but they arrive to the same conclusion. There is Hume in England, who reject the principle of causality because we cannot touch that, we cannot observe that directly. And Malebranche, he was a priest, a member of the Oratorian order, he was a disciple of Descartes. He goes to the opposite, he denies the causality in created thing. He said the causality is only in God. And we are, for God, the occasion to act. You know, you have the two extremes. But finally, the two extremes arrive to the negation of the causality in material thing. In thing we can see, can touch. So there can be only one and unique cause exercising his infinite causality. You know, either we deny causality because we cannot observe that, so we deny metaphysics. In fact, you deny completely metaphysics. You reduce all knowledge to sense knowledge. And you have great influence in Anglo-Saxon countries. And positivism, for example, positivism is the line of Hume. That means we can know only what we can measure, we can touch. At the other side, Malebranche was a mathematician. So we will go to the extreme. In fact, if God is the unique cause, what are we? What are we? Okay? So, in fact, the principle of causality is the foundation. What is that? The principle. Whatever begins, begins to exist, begins to be, must have a cause for its existence. Be careful, not for its beginning, for its existence. There is a difference between so only the beginning of a thing, already existence, and the thing beginning to exist. And the most important is this, to begin to exist. So there is no beginning of existence without a cause. Okay? So what is a cause? A cause is that from which something proceeds with dependence. A cause is not only a sequence of events, a series of events. It's not only a sequence, a series of events. It is a series of events with dependence. Now, I give you an example. I told that many times in class, but I repeat that. The Expo in Montreal, you know, the former baseball club of Montreal, the Expo, went to play in Auckland, just on the other side of the river in San Francisco. And when they began to play, there was an earthquake. Therefore, the Expo are the cause of the earthquake. Of course, nobody will accept that. Huh? It is a pure sequence of events. I arrive at some place, and there is a typhoon, there is a tsunami. That is only a sequence. Then the difference between a series of events and causality is the word dependence. The second depends on the first. You know? If you call 911 because you discover a dead body on the ground here in the campus, what will be the reason, the thing of the police immediately? Who did that? Huh? We are searching for a cause because there is no murder without a cause. Huh? So that is common sense. Sometimes we forget common sense when we speak about something for you. The causality is a fact, we cannot deny. Anyway, science is based on causality. What is the principle in physics? The same cause under the same circumstance of pressure have the same effect. The same cause under the same circumstances produce the same effect. If you put fire and you put the water on the fire, you will not have ice. No, you have boiling water, you know, okay? So the principle of causality cannot be expressed in the following word. We cannot say, that's very important, we cannot say whatever exists as a cause. Why we cannot say that? Whatever exists as a cause. Because the first cause has no cause and he exists. Therefore, we should change our expression and say every being has its reason to exist. And that is the universal principle of causality we call sufficient reason. It applies to God, it applies to everything. Every being, by the fact he or it exists, has a reason for that. Remember when you study metaphysics? Every being is one, every being is true, every being is good. That means the fact a thing is being, it can be known by an intellect. There is a reason why that being exists. No? Sufficient reason, okay? Because sometimes they say everything exists as a cause. If you say that, you must say every finite being as a cause. Finite being. You cannot see every being as a cause. God cannot cause himself. So if you want to apply the principle even to God, you have to apply the principle of sufficient reason. But when we apply that to finite being, we can say every finite being as a cause. Now, a difficulty here. As it might be said, is from the existence of an effect at the present time, we cannot prove the present existence of this effect. Now, from Q, we cannot prove that P exists. Now, without P, without that, if P, then Q. If you have proof Q, you cannot prove immediately P. You have to use a demonstration. No? That is a difficulty. But, I continue, we can prove only that a cause must have existed at some time in the past to give the universe a beginning. So what we can say, at least must be something at the beginning, to give the first flick, to make the world existing. Okay? What is the solution we can take for that? The apparent difficulty will be solved by making the difference between a cause in theory, that means a cause in becoming. Theory is the Latin verb for to be, but in a passive, to be made, in a passive way, to be made. Theory, that is the infinitive of to be made, infinitive passive. And when you pray the Angelus, what do you say? Fiat. When you pray the Father, our Father, fiat voluntas tua, no? That means be made. That will be made. So in theory means in becoming. In the fact I am being made. In being made. Okay? So we must distinguish a cause in being made, or if you want, in the becoming, or if you want, the passage from potency to act, the passage. That is first meaning. And second meaning, the cause in esse, in existence. In esse is the infinitive of to be. So in the fact of existence. So in the fact of becoming, in the fact of existing. So we must distinguish that, becoming and existing. Okay? So the cause of the thing, the being. In fact, here it is the cause of the being itself. Here it is the cause of the passing from potency to act, of the becoming, of the being made. Being made. Okay. Next page, page 9. So the example given here is the building. The builder is the cause of the becoming, but like the sculptor is the cause of the statue, like the painter is the cause of the painting, but the builder dies, the sculptor dies, the painter dies, and everything continues to exist. My father dies, my mother dies, I continue to exist. Therefore, they are cause on the level of becoming. They are not cause on the level of existence. In fact, strictly speaking, it's not true to say my parent gave me existence. We studied that in philosophy of man, you remember. Only God can give the soul, give life to the soul. But they are the cause of my becoming. They collaborate with God for my creation, but they are not the creator. They cannot give me existence. But they are there to transmit me the existence. You know? So they are the cause of the fact I am made a man. Okay? Now, okay, you can read that paragraph here. Yes, okay. Just and changing at the top line, and changing and moving are here, right? Not is, are, A-R-E, not is, but we have two subjects, are. Are the characteristic of any material reality. The world will have been in motion as long as it existed. Why? Because the universe is constantly changing, moving. We know that everything is moving. The atoms are moving inside of the electron and the proton. Everything is moving. So that is universal. You remember the philosopher who was totally absorbed by that move, that change is. You remember that? Heraclitus. It's everything. There is nothing stable. And he was totally absorbed, seduced by change. But his opponent was Parmenides. Parmenides said, no, change is only apparent. Being is always there. The two extremes, Parmenides and in between arrive Aristotle. That means it is something existing but in change. Passing from potency to act. So the world, as long as it existed, is changing. That means is becoming. So that's interesting because the Greek thought the word be eternal, no? They thought the word was eternal. Even if the word was eternal, was it God? No, it was not God. Why? Because it was changing. It was becoming. And the fact it's changing, even the fact the word be theoretically eternal, will not change. The fact is, it is always changing. And the fact it is always changing, it is always in time. It is not in eternity. So that means the eternal existence of the world does not make the world a God. Because it is changing. And it is depending continually on another. It does not exist by himself. It's not impossible for God to have created the world for all eternity. It's not impossible. Even if God has created the world for all eternity, let us suppose that, the world will never be God. Because the world will always depend on another. It will be always contingent. So the question of creation is not a question of time. Many times we say it's not a question of beginning. Essentially, the question of creation is a question of dependence on the first cause that exists by itself. Because many times we say, the question, did the world begin? It's not, philosophically speaking, is not a central question. St. Thomas has an answer for that. I think you have the text about that. He says, it is possible. It's not contradictory. It is not contradictory to say that the world be eternal. Because it will be eternally changing, depending on another. It will be never pure act. It will be for all eternity passing from potency to act. Okay? So the problem of the existence, eternity of God, of the world, is a problem of causality in the dependency. We depend on for the existence. The world cannot exist by itself because it is changing. Yes, brother.
Father, okay, so Heraclitus said everything changed, nothing is stable. And whatever, he contradicted him, or he just refuted him? Like, what did he say exactly again?
Who said?
Remedies or...
Parmenides said the change, the movement is apparent.
Okay, movement is apparent.
And Heraclitus, he said, there is only change, there is no permanent being.
Okay.
The other opposed. And Aristotle did say, yes, being in change.
Thank you.
Being, Parmenides, in change, Heraclitus. He made the synthesis of the two opponents. Huh? Okay. I'll go now to page number 3.4. So the general principle, every produced being, another word for produced being, becoming, a becoming being, a produced being, or a being existing by another, or a being passing from potency to act, must have a cause in esse. That means must have a cause for its existence. A thing which is changing cannot explain itself. It must be explained by another. It depends on another. So two positions here. Now, this cause of the produced being must itself be either uncaused being or there is no passage for potency to act without a being. But that being can be uncaused or can be caused. For example, the existence of my being as a human being depends on my mother and my father. Okay? So they are caused, but they don't exist by themselves. They are produced. So we cannot go infinitely. We must arrive to a first, and that first, to explain the rest, must be outside of the series and must be uncaused. So I must arrive finally to arrive a first uncaused being to explain the existence of being. You know, here it is a little bit different from the first proof. The first proof was about motion. The first proof was about motion, the passage from potency to act. The third proof, it is about the existence of the being passing from potency to act. So not only I have a cause making me in motion, I must have a cause to exist, to be able to be in motion. You know, that is the we say. And that cause must be uncaused, because if you go to 1 million causes, there is the first. If the first cannot give himself his own existence, he must receive from another, and that other must exist by himself. Okay? So the necessity of an uncaused cause. I already explained that. So therefore, at the bottom, therefore, we must admit the existence of a first independent cause. Interesting independent cause. But we say the second proof, aceity. In fact, aceity is independent cause. You know, the proof of the existence of God are linked one with another. In fact, to have a good idea of the existence of God, we should have all the proofs together. Because, for example, the first proof by motion was made by Aristotle. But Aristotle did not arrive to say that the first mover was God. He arrived to a first mover, thinking himself, you know, is God. And that God did not take care of the creation, because it was an imperfection for that God to take care of creation. So the proof of the existence of God are valuable when they are taken as a whole. When the one another is linked, and from that we can deduce the attributes of God. Okay, I go to at the bottom of the page. Therefore, we must admit either the existence of an uncaused cause or an infinity series. But we cannot accept an infinity series. Therefore, we must accept an existence as totally independent, totally different from alio. As means ada. We don't pronounce the B in Latin, so we say as. In that first cause, of course, it is transcendent. It is not in the series. It is apart the series. So we arrive to the same conclusion as before. That cause must be apart, sanctus, separate, you know, transcendent. But at the same time, it must be immanent, near us. Because can we exist without that cause? So here we arrive to the two dimension of God. God is totally different. At the same time, God is intimately present to us. He is present to every of my electron and proton in my body. Not a single electron, not a single cell of my body can exist without it existed. So we are at the idea of omnipotent. Okay, we'll see that after. Let's go to page 10. Well, here we have the example electromagnet. Every analogy is incomplete. For example, electricity is necessary. We cannot to have light, but electricity is not necessary in itself. It must be produced by a generator. And that generator must be moved into action by something. So finally, we arrive. The comparison is incomplete. Every comparison is incomplete. I don't insist on that here. I go to next, just before 3443. In each step of causality, receive is an effect of the activity of the precedent cause. That means when you have a series of causes, each one is the cause of the other, of the motion. Is the cause of the motion of the other, is not the cause of the existence of the other. But when you study electricity, you know that electricity is the passage from an electron to, from an atom to another, to another, to another, to another, to another, etc. Okay? That is electricity. But that the passage explains electricity. There must be a cause, a first cause. There must be a generator. So here, if my grandfather transmit life to my father, etc., 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 does not explain why we are living. We must have a source of life at the beginning. We must arrive to a first cause. On cause, that is. We cannot say that there is no first in the series. Or we go back to the infinity. But if you say, okay, how I can explain the electricity? But I will explain because we have 1 million kilometers of wire. But you can have 2 billion. Do you explain the passage of electricity in the wire? No. So to accumulate a series of being passing from one to the other does not explain the passage. We must to go outside of. For example, here, I must go outside of the electron of copper, of iron, to explain how it's possible that the electron jump from one to the other, to the other, to the other electron, atom, You must have a first cause. And that first cause must be outside of. Now, that is an explanation, is an illustration, is not a total explanation, but we can understand a little bit. The first cause must be outside of the series. The generator here must be outside of that. In fact, those who study electricity, you know that. The generator is a magnet turning inside of another magnet, and that provokes a passage of electrons. But that generator is not in the series, it's outside. It's not communicated with that is interesting, it's not communicated by wire. You do not, It is it's the same when you have a transformer. The transformer is a passage. The electricity is provoked in the secondary by the passage of a magnetic field. But the magnetic field is not electricity. Provokes electricity. Oh, okay. Now I go to... just after that,
There you go.
function? Yes. Thank you. Thank you, John. You are a cause, but of the becoming, not the cause of the being. But it's important, no? For example, I am the cause of the becoming of your learning, no? But I am only the cause of becoming. If you learned it, it's not because of me, because of you. Okay? Assimilation. Huh? Okay, I continue. The conclusion is, hence, there will be no causality in the whole theory unless there is a first cause not needing to receive causality from any other, could impart causality to the series. So the first must receive nothing, but must be able to move everything. Not only, be careful, not only to move from potency to act, but to give them their existence. That is very important. Not only the first cause is the cause of the motion, it is what we study in the first proof, it is the cause of the existence. Not only, we have to distinguish activity and being. You remember what is nature? And nature is the essence as principle of activity. You remember that, huh? So, the cause must be the cause of the, not only of the activity, it's the cause of the nature, the existence of the being. Okay. Continue. This first independent cause does not make number with the series. It is transcendent, and at the same time must be also immanent, because we cannot exist without that. So that first cause is sustaining us in our activities, but first in our existence. We cannot have activity if we don't have existence. And that is very, very strong. We see that immediately when we see, from that we have the attribute of the omnipotence of God. We can do nothing without it. Not only to move, but to exist. Not only to move, but to exist. Okay. Now, page 11, here you have the statement of St. Thomas. So, in fact, you know, St. Thomas repeats what I said. And you will find that. It is the argument. So, therefore, I go in the middle, 3, 5, 6. Therefore, it is necessary to put forward a first efficient cause to which everyone gives the name of God. Finally, we arrive to the first. The first cause must be out of the series. The first cause must be the cause of the activity of the series, and not only the activity, the existence, the being of the series. Okay? So, I continue. That paragraph, 3.6, is a very, very important. 3.6, yes?
When you get to it, would you look to see if there's a typographical error on 366 under remark? 366 under remark.
Yeah, yes. You have to make a correction here.
Not should be removed?
Yeah, there is a mistake here. No, not a mistake, but it is incomplete. Just before because, you have to write, it is not because. It is not because. It is not. Okay? It is not because. Okay? That is number 3.6.6. The other proof, etc., discusses, comma, it is not because, etc. Okay? So I go to that paragraph here because it is important. So implication. First, the principle of causality requires to admit A, not only the existence of the cause of every effect, but also the existence of a cause proportion to the effect. That means the cause must be able to produce the effect. If I can, if I cannot raise 50 pounds, I cannot raise 500 pounds, So that is the minimum. We can give only what we possess. Secondly, don't proportionate to the effect. Secondly, a cause cannot give to the effect that which is not possessed. Okay. The cause must contain the perfection at least equal to the perfection of the effect. Very, very important for the attribute of God. That means in the effect we see some perfection. That perfection must be in the cause. At least the same level. Of course, can be more. For example, a teacher, he can give only what he knows, but he's supposed to know better, more than, than when he teaches, Okay? And then, therefore, we can know from this principle of causality two things. Not only a first cause exists, but also that this first cause must possess all the perfection. Next paragraph. Then we can know that the first cause must be an intelligent and personal being. Because why? Because if there is perfection, there is order in the effect, the cause must have the perfection of order. What causes order? It is the intellect. Intellect being can put order. Don't ask your cat to put order in the kitchen or in your room or dog. He's very intelligent, he will not put order. Only an intelligent being can put order. So a personal being, very, very important. Here, imagine through reason, human reason, we arrive to discover that the first cause not only is a powerful being, is intelligent being, and by the fact, is a personal being. You know, the New Age does not consider God as a personal being. He's a force, he's an energy, force, energy. No, he is a personal being. In fact, but his religion, it's not proper to Catholicism, that. Even pagan, they have a personal, because, of course, we say they adore a statue. I don't think the Greek was so stupid to say they adore a marble. But the statue was representing a power, a God. In fact, like we pray to the Blessed Virgin Mary, we don't venerate a blanket or a statue or a piece of wood. No? So the Greek was not, they were not stupid. Sometimes we are inclined to say, no, they were not stupid. They didn't adore strictly wood, but they were in relation with a power. That means through my reason, I can recognize that the first cause is intelligent and personal. And that is a great, great step in the knowledge of God. Great step. And that is not through revelation. It is through my reason. Yes, brother?
I don't know, this may be blasphemous, but can we say the same thing about the Eucharist?
I don't see the question.
Well, you just said that we don't worship the blanket with the image of the Blessed Mother on
Yes,
it.
it's not the same. The Eucharist is the real presence of it. I don't want to speak about theology.
Yeah.
But the Eucharist is not only a symbol, it's a reality. Don't forget, it's a reality, the substance. But here it's not a reality. It's a blanket, it is clothes, it is Okay. But what is important? Those who adore, they adore not the piece of wood. They have a relation with a God, a goddess, So sometimes what is a religion? It's a relation between a creation and a creator or a God. Not with a piece of wood. So that we must be attentive to that. Our ancestors who were pagan, they were not stupid. And their religion was not to adore a piece of wood, it was to adore a power. Even when they adore the cat, they were adoring another power than God. Another person than God, A living being. That cat represented a power of an ox, So sometimes we must think that man, being rational, can arrive through his reason to a personal God. And that is taught by the Council Vatican I, saying we can arrive to the knowledge of God through the human reason. And that is it. Why? Because we see the order, we see the perfection in things, that perfection in creation. Look at the beautiful rose, for example. A beautiful, your cat, oh my cat. You'll have But that is, yes, it's beautiful. An animal is beautiful, even a cockroach. Huh? When Mrs. Cockroach means Mr. Cockroach, you say, oh, you are the most beautiful cockroach in the world. Huh? We have the power through our intellect to arrive to a personal relation with a God, with a supernatural being, a being above all. It's not Christian faith, but it is the preparation to receive Christian faith, to receive the gift of faith in a God who will reveal himself. Because in that relation, God does not reveal himself. I know there must be a you know what St. Paul speaks about the unknown God, huh? You say, I know, oh yes, oh, and the Greek word said to know what is that unknown God. Unknown God. And Paul presents, you know, Paul used the fact that the Greek were attentive to the gods, huh? Not only as a power, but as a kind of personal reality, that he was able to be attentive. I know another God, huh? with whom you can have a relation. Consequently, we can show that God is a personal being, and further, by following our implication of the idea of infinity, we can establish all the attributes of God. In fact, the attributes of God comes from the proof of the existence of God. We cannot find them directly. We find them through the fact we discover, the way we prove the existence of God is the way to discover the attribute of God. So a remark now. The other proof, besides these metaphysical proof, are not given and discussed. It is not because these metaphysical proofs are not sufficient in themselves to establish the existence of God and to set on the right path of reasoning to human nature. But, that is important, but because other proofs may make a more telling appeal to other minds. The other proof, we speak here about the moral proof and universal recognition of the fact of religion, for example. And emphasize certain attributes of God, which are only implicit in the metaphysical proof. In fact, Mr. Hull, you remember that in the third chapter, he says the proof, the most powerful proof for some people are not the metaphysical proof. They are the moral proof. The moral proof. For example, for some Christians, the fear of hell is more powerful than the contemplation of the Holy Trinity. And there is a passage of the Bible, you see, Timor initium sapientiae. Timor initium sapientiae.
Fear initiates wisdom.
The fear of God, the fear, Timor, the fear, is the beginning of wisdom. You remember what your father said, hey? Okay. Some people, they are more attentive to that proof. Someone, for example, they will not kill, they will not steal because they are afraid to go to hell, instead of being afraid to not offend God, you know. That is a fact. Not every proof of the existence of God as the same part. For example, for me, I told you, for me the most striking proof is a contingency. But for other contingency. But you know, I can go to hell, I can go to heaven. Oh, that is important, you know. So the proof are not the same, depend on the people, no? Okay? So don't search and don't attribute too much power to those proofs. They are powerful for those who are already faith and they comfort that faith. It's very interesting that through my reason, I arrive to such deep knowledge of God. Through my reason. You know, God made us to His image. He gave us intellect, in the intellect to know Him. Next page, page 12. So the first cause is not a univocal cause. Of course, when we study different causes, we have univocal, and analogical. Huh? So what is a univocal cause? Is a cause that produces exactly the same effect, an effect of the same level. For example, your parents are the univocal cause of your formation. A man produces a man. A cat engenders a cat. You know, that is univocal. When we speak about the causality of God, we are not in the university. We are in the analogy. And the causality in God is not the same causality in material realities.
Oh gosh.
And that is important. You know why? Because if the causality of God would be exactly the same, that means that God should be material. Somebody asked me, is it possible that Spirit, you know, if God was the same causality, if I produce something material, it must be material. God can produce anything. He's not linked with, he is a cause sharing with us a part of his causality. His causality is totally apart, totally independent. For example, a sculptor in his causality depends on marble, on the wood, on marble. God in his causality depends on nothing. Because if it depends on nothing, on something, it is no more necessary. It depends on someone. And that idea is very important. Why? Because if God depends on nothing, and the world exists, therefore the world was created from nothing.
Too deep for me, Father. Can't go there.
So I come back. You know, the causality of God is different. Our causality, we transform things, we don't create things, you know. I take a marble, I sculpt a statue. Okay? God, I depend to. For example, your mother, even she create a new recipe, she has to use flour, she has to use sugar, to have, no. God, when he causes something, can he depend on something existing before? No. He can depend on nothing. He is absolutely transcendent. Therefore, we must accept at the level of reason, not faith, that God is creator. Strong, no? So we cannot escape that, because if we say God depend on something, something existed before, or he was depending on that, he was not totally transcendent. So God, because he is totally transcendent, totally independent of everything, when he makes something, he does something from nothing. Interesting. So sometimes they say, oh, we know the creation. Yes, historically, we arrive to the notion of creation through the Bible, through revelation. But now we can use our reason to arrive through our reason. Why the Greeks were not able to speak about creation? Because for them the world was eternal. So the God did not create the world, but transform the world. For Plato, God was a demiurge. He transformed the world from chaos to cosmos. And for Aristotle, he was the first mover. The first mover is not creator. So the idea of creation comes from, I will say, with the idea of aseity. The idea of necessity. God exists necessary. And it depends on nothing. It's absolutely apart everything. So his activity must be apart everything. That means his activity of making the work, producing the work, must depend on nothing. And when we do something from nothing, we call that creation. I'm surprised sometimes how far we can go using our reason. Okay? So if by reason I know that, it's not the Bible teach me. So I say that is goes very well together. Huh? Okay? Well, we can read by yourself the text of St. Thomas. I told you, St. Thomas, repeat what I told you. So I go to page 13. God is differentiated for other causes. I explained that to you. But only by bringing about the condition, etc. So man can produce something. See, it's true. He can produce something, but from something. He's a maker. He's not a creator. We start from something. Strictly speaking, there is no creation for man. It's impossible, because create is to start from nothing. Okay? So the causality of God, the effect which God produced are like Him, not in the likeness of nature, but in the analogy to His nature. That means the effect God produced cannot be equal to Him. God cannot produce another God. So when God produced being, create being, any kind of being, man or cat or etc., He produced something, it is analogical to Him. In fact, here we come back to the idea of being in metaphysics. The idea of being is essentially analogical. When I teach metaphysics, I say, very important for theology. The idea of God is analogical. The being is analogical. The being of God is ase. The being of us is I and other. Okay? So when God created being, He created a being not ase. He created a being ab alio. He cannot create a being ase. It's impossible. It's contradictory. It will be contradictory to say I create a being like me. It will not be like, it will not be identical, it will be different. It will be ab alio. And when you speak, when you study theology, parenthesis, no? You see Jesus is angel, begotten, not made. In the Greek, you see that every Sunday, begotten, not made. Okay? Well, you study that with in theology. So I go to pay a number, just after that. God and the creature are not a sharer in the same being. The being of God is uncreated, self-existent, ase. The being of creature is dependent and from another derived. So an objection here after that about the infinite, can we prove the infinite from the finite? That is the objection. But in fact, to answer that objection, we must go to analogy. You know? Because those philosophers, they use university. The same, no. Causality in God is different from causality in man, in creature. So the answer, it must be noticed that the argument does not attempt to prove the first cause is infinite, but only that the first cause exists. Therefore, okay, I don't want to insist on that. Just after that, criticism. If for the world to be, it must be been created, then this evidence is of its need of creation is evidence of infinite power. So meaning if as soon as you say the word anything must be created, immediately you imply that must be created by an infinite power. Only an infinite power can pass a thing from nothing to something. Without nothing pre-existing. Okay? Page 14. So the proof of a maker is known to the substance of the thing made. We know a thing, for example, a painter from what he did, he painted. And also through the mode of being made. So two things, what he did and how he did that. So God, he did the whole creation, but how he did that? From nothing. So not only we must say God is the cause of everything existing outside of him, but we must say he did that from nothing. If you say he did that from something, he is not God. It depends on another. So if you take, remember, the word transcendence is very, 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 very important. No? And because of that, if everything depends on him to exist, he is omnipresent to everything. He is omniscient, you know, all the attributes of God, which are coming from that here. Well, Spencer speaks about the problem of time. Of course, the time exists when creation exists. And God is outside of creation. For God, there is no time. There is only eternity. There is no time, because time implies change. What is time? It is the measure of change, movement. God is outside of, so God is eternal. We studied that when we studied the attributes of God. But what we can now affirm that God has no dependence on the thing. So what are the attributes we can find now from that proof? About God is creator. That means he must produce things, make things without nothing, depending. So he is totally independent, transcendent. But at the same time, he is immanent. Because not only he produced the thing, he created the thing, but he sustained the thing in his existence. Now, not only is the cause of the becoming of man, he is the cause of his being, his existence. So you see, you did the difference. God is not only a maker, he is a creator. That means not only he produced something, but he produced from nothing, and he sustained the thing in its existence, in its nature. Because of that, in his activity also. It's very strong, because we must be sustaining God not only in our existence, even in our activity. Why? Because our activity are mode of being, and God is the cause of being. Well, here there is a problem about evil. How God can sustain somebody who kills? Okay, if you want to be patient, we arrive at the end. Because of that, God must know. He must know everything he does. God is intelligent, because there is other. God is personal. And because of that, he is omniscient, he is omnipotent. Nothing escapes his power. He is omnipresent, omnipotent. All those attributes, we studied that in 2-3 weeks. But those attributes come from that here. God conserves, God sustains, not only God makes things, produces things from nothing to something, but he continues to, we call that the conservation. And attached to conservation, we will study the idea of providence. Because he knows, and in fact, with the three first proof, you have almost all the attributes of God. Not everyone, but of course, from moral proof, you will have the attribute of justice, or mercy. But for the moment, we have a lot of attributes of God. So the attributes of God are known from the proof of the existence of God. And the proof of the existence of God comes from our senses. All that comes from my senses, no? I see the order, I see the motion, so our knowledge comes from our senses. Nickel in intellectu, if prayers is not in my in sensu. First thing must be in sensu. My knowledge of God starts from experience. But the attribute of God are deduction. My knowledge of God is from experience, a posteriori, the existence of God. But from the fact I know God, God exists, I can conclude He is omnipotent, He is omniscience, He is eternal, etc. So from the proof, the three proof, imagine the number of attributes we already discovered. If you will eat, no? It is because God sustained you and sustained the food in existence.